Okay, welcome back, guys. So today I'm going to give you a complete course totally for free. It's from the Etsy Accelerator community, which I run. It's a pretty long, it's detailed training on exactly how to brand your Etsy shop. This is definitely an advanced course. So it is for people that are at that bit more serious level. And like I said, it goes into a lot of detail straight out of the Etsy community. I wanted to give it to you completely for free on YouTube. Enjoy. And good luck with your Etsy branding. We are going to go through branding in a lot of detail today, guys. All right, a lot of detail. So right down to, font choices, color palettes, emotion with the audience, looking at your target audience, how to present your products, how to present your listings, present your shop. We're basically covering every single aspect of branding that we possibly can within Etsy. So yeah, I think it's going to be a really good one for you guys. So let's make a start. Now, first of all, I just want to really quickly run you guys through explaining branding and what exactly it is and why we do it. So firstly, what is branding and what is branding on Etsy? So in a nutshell, guys, see the sentence here. Branding is basically just the process of creating a unique identity. Okay, so a unique identity in your business. Image and perception of a product, service, or company through consistent messaging, consistent design, and experience to build recognition and trust with the target audience. So, in other words, guys, what is branding? It's basically just the perception or the idea of your company and your brand, all right, your business that you put out into the world. And your branding should be consistent from top to bottom. So you think, for example, you see an Adidas logo or you see a pair of shoes, you know what that brand is. You could think of, say, chocolate in your mind now, and you'll have a certain brand that comes to mind. Or you could think of cars and you will have certain brands that come to mind. You could think of a reliable car and you'd have a brand come to mind. Or you could think of a fast car and there could be a brand come to mind. So it's that identity in the brand that when you think of something, they are the first name that pops in your head. And that's kind of what you want your brand to portray, especially on Etsy. So you got to think, if, say, for example, you sell quirky art, okay, and there's somebody that's going on Etsy and they want to buy quirky art, or whatever, it's just somebody that they want to buy a piece of quirky art. You want your brand name to pop straight in their head immediately. So as soon as they think of, okay, look, I got a spare wall over there, let's get some quirky art, brand name, your name pops straight into their head. In essence, that's what branding is. And now, why do we brand? Okay, so branding is very important, guys, and it's because it helps differentiate your business from the competitors. It massively builds trust and credibility with your audience. I see so many Etsy shops, right? The difference between a well-branded Etsy shop and an Etsy shop that's just got, say, a few different products chucked in with different ways of listing them, nothing's really cohesive. It makes such a difference to how you perceive that shop, and you probably see that yourself on Etsy. Of course, when you've got a strong brand and customers know what they're getting from you, this is of course going to foster customer loyalty, and it's going to create a memorable impression that, like I said, can lead to long-term success and recognition of your brand. It's very important. Branding is very important for the long-term success and long-term scalability of your business. Now, I just want to show you a few example brands here of some Etsy shops that do it very well. So example brand one, I said this is public. You can go check out the Etsy shops yourself if you want on Etsy. This is one of my favorite shops to showcase, guys, because their branding, in my opinion, this is the essence of a perfect Etsy brand. So you can see the way that they list their products is cohesive with the banner, and their banner is cohesive with the logo. When I say cohesive, I basically mean everything flows together and they use the same color palettes throughout. So you see, this is a very light brand, okay? It's a very light-hearted brand, which of course goes perfectly with their products. They use a lot of white. You notice something that you're going to notice consistently for a lot of these brands I'm going to show you, and a lot what we're going to talk about in today's video. Color palettes. You're going to see a lot of consistency across brands with color palettes. And it's something I do want to get you guys thinking about in a bit more detail. You can also see the way that their products are presented. So, i.e. the consistent amount of white space around the product here is consistent throughout the shop. And what happens is when you put those images next to each other, it just makes everything flow so much better. So you imagine here, for example, if you take this product here, imagine if instead of having a white background with a load of white space around it, you just add a really dark black background. Like, guys, how out of place would that look on this Etsy shop if that was the case? So yeah, in a nutshell, that is what I mean about branding. And now I just want to show you another example brand here. So this is Natasha Robinson 1 shop. So this is a digital print shop, specifically an art shop. And you can see you take one look and everything again, just like Arrow Gift Co, is so cohesive and so consistent, even down to the detail of the style of art. So next to each other, you can see there's different niches being here as well, guys. So you can see you've got some fruit ones, you've got plants, you've got food and chilies. You've even got like a sun goddess art print one here, sunflowers. You can see these are different products in different niches, hitting different audiences, but the brand image and the brand identity has stayed consistent throughout all of them. And again, they use the same strategy. So the white space around the product, that's consistent through all the images. And again, if you picture, say one of these was led up against a black wall, that would look so out of place on this shop and so off brand, okay? It would just not go right at all. So yeah, you can even see consistency in the font style. So you see they got the same font here, the exact same logo in the banner as what they do in the logo. And again, it's another element of just consistency in multiple different positions throughout the shop and throughout the business, which is something that's very important. And now I want to go, guys, into a bit more detail and actually explain to you now where branding occurs on Etsy specifically and with your Etsy shop, because it's going to be a little bit different to say if you were trying to build a brand and market it purely on social media or a website, etc. So where does branding actually happen on Etsy? This basically, guys, happens in 4 different areas. So of course, like we discussed, the images and how the products are presented, the banner and the logo in combination. And when I say in combination, this means using the same color palettes and the same fonts in your banner as what you do to your logo. If not, repeating your logo actually in the banner. You see, just like Arrow Gift Co here. So again, imagine if the background to the logo, or say they even used a black logo here, and then in the banner, obviously it's a white and very light background. It would look so off-brand, it would not go together, and it would look nowhere near as cohesive and professional as what this does. And then of course, guys, you've got the exact same on the social media. So the exact same logo used consistently throughout, the exact same picture style, the exact same color palette. And then of course, the about us and the brand story as well. So you see everything. And one thing this brand does very well, by the way, guys, is the choice of fonts. So fonts, color palette, style of imagery, how images are presented is so consistent. And in my opinion, they're the 4 things that if you get them right on Etsy, you will have a killer brand, and it doesn't have to be that complicated. Now, let's move on. So guys, the key to good branding, and I'm going to say it a million times throughout this video, so sorry if you're going to get bored of hearing it, but it's just so important. The key to good branding really is being extra, just ultra consistent across all the different touch points of your business. So I've said it already, the fonts used, the color palettes, the image style, the presentation. So again, this is the backgrounds that you use in your images, how light they are, how dark they are. If you're doing print on demand, the types of mock-ups that you use, keep them consistent. If you're selling physical products, again, keep the packaging as consistent as possible and as on brand as possible. I don't know if any of you guys know a brand called ASOS. Okay, they're a clothing brand. I know they're quite big in the UK, but you can see an ASOS parcel from a mile away and you could glance at it and you know it's ASOS straight away. They use that kind of like black and white, checkered, squared, like barcodey sort of packages. Anyone that's shopped on them before will know. But yeah, you look at the package and you know the brand straight away. So again, packaging is very important. And then of course, one thing we haven't touched on quite yet, but it's going to be the tone and your marketing voice. So for example, the 2 brands I presented to you earlier, I'd say these are both a bit more like, so Arrow Gift Co, it's more of like a fun, jokey, quirky, like gifting sort of vibe. And then Natasha Robinson shop art, this is a bit more of a like quirky, hipster sort of vibe. And of course, that vibe and that certain customer base, you basically want to make sure that whatever text you're putting in and the way that you're speaking to your audience in that way. So Arrow Gift Co, they'll speak to their audience like bright, cheerful, everything's going to be lighthearted, you know. And then Natasha Robinson, everything's going to be maybe like a bit more edgy, a bit more like artsy, you know. It's just different vibes, for example. And then again, if you had say like a really upmarket brand and you're selling jewelry products for like like $300 a pop, then again, that is a completely different customer that's going to need a completely different tone of voice compared to a customer that's buying, say, $15 quirky art prints. Okay, you kind of get the gist. Now, we're going to move on here to branding research. So this is where we're going to get into a bit more the practicalities, guys, of branding your own personal shops. So one thing I'll always say is you cannot brand your business unless you see a very clear image of what you want the brand to look like and what you want the brand to represent in your head first. To be able to envisage our brand, of course, we need to know what we like personally. Some of you may kind of get the vision in your head straight away of, okay, I want my brand to look exactly like this. But for a lot of us, we kind of need to get a good idea of what we like first. And the best way to do that is, of course, through research. Research is very important, guys, because we need to find out what we like. And now, before we go into too much detail, just some very general rules of branding here. Okay, and this is very top level, very general. And basically, two things that are very important when it comes to branding is color palettes and typology. So color palettes and fonts that you choose. This, in my opinion, has the biggest emotional effect on what your brand looks like and what your brand portrays. So in general, guys, and now of course there is exceptions to this, but in general, dark colors and more dark colored branding gives off a more sophisticated or high-end and professional look in general, okay? Light colors, just like the Arrow Gift Co brand, for example, give off a lot more playful and cheerful sort of vibes, okay? So two very different color palettes here and probably marketed to two very different customer bases. And now again, when we look at fonts as well, typology, you look at these fonts here and I can almost guarantee you guys, without me even saying anything and presenting this slide, you can look at these fonts and you get a different feeling or a different perception to, say, different brands that could be using each one of these fonts. But in general, guys, serif and sans serif fonts, just like this top one here, they present brands that are more trustworthy, elegant, definitely a lot more traditional. So think like a Times New Roman font, for example, and they're just a lot more simple. You then move on to script fonts. So you see a lot of these in a lot of brands on Etsy, okay? Because of course, they represent much more elegance, creativity, and a personal touch, okay? Because they're script. Script is kind of like a neat handwriting. Then we move on to slab serif fonts, okay? So these represent strength, boldness, and stability in your brand. So these are a lot more like in your face fonts, okay? You then got display fonts, and this is like, guys, this is a whole category in itself. Display fonts can be pretty much anything, okay? This is where creativity literally runs wild. And by the way, guys, if you're using a program like Canva, for example, just type in, and you're looking for a font, just type in, say, any of these types that I've listed at the start, and then you'll see lists and lists and lists of fonts that are for the type of font that you put in. Then, of course, you got handwritten. So this is where the Arrow Gift Co font falls in, quite representing warmth, friendliness, personal connection, you know, that kind of, and I'd add another one here. I'd go a bit more like cheerful, joyful, lightheartedness. It's handwritten, right? It's not perfect, but again, I almost think handwritten fonts, they're quite trendy, especially in 2025 as I make this course. I'd say certainly handwritten and script are probably two of the biggest ones that you see being used on Etsy for a lot of brands. And then of course you move down as well to monospace or more modern fonts. So like I said, these fonts are generally a lot more modern, clean, they're balanced. You know, I personally love this approach. So if I was to choose any font, which I say would represent me and the way that I brand products and I brand my businesses, it would be more monospace and modern. So yeah, again, you're gonna have a different idea in your head to me. You're probably selling a different product to me. You're probably gonna wanna hit a different audience compared to me. So again, think about the audience and then think about what font and what colors are gonna match up best with that audience. But you don't have to do it now, guys. We're gonna work through this all together in the next few steps. So I alluded to it earlier, guys, but I think it's good to present it to you actually in a picture. So color psychology. This is so important when it comes to branding. And these big brands, especially some of the ones here that I'm presenting to in this image, they have done so much research. I guarantee you, like they have tested out so many different trial and error, different techniques when it comes to color psychology. And the basis of this is that different colors present different emotions. And the color of your branding in general is going to give off a certain emotion and a certain feeling to the customer that's looking at it. So Pink, love, affection, emotion. Barbie stands out to me a lot here. I don't know why, but yeah, that's Barbie all over pink. Red, boldness and passion. So extremely popular ones here. Coca-Cola, Lego, McDonald's, everything. McDonald's, for example, even right down to the packaging of the chips, or for the American audience, the fries that you get. Bright red. They use a lot of red in McDonald's. Orange is more aggressive, more direct. Popeyes, Home Depot, Firefox, okay? You see the colors are very consistent throughout the whole brand. And then again, moving down to yellow. So this is brands that are a lot more, attention grabbing. Like yellow, it's an attention grabbing color. Best Buy, IKEA, Nikon, or Nikon, however you want to say it. A lot of yellow in their logos. And that's just one thing I generally wanted to point out here, guys. The color has the biggest psychological effect in the logo, because what do we remember most about brands, right? Or what first comes to mind? It's the logo. So the logo is more important than what it seems on the surface. And again, guys, it's this sort of training on, say, YouTube videos. We don't go into this sort of level of detail. This is definitely a level higher, because this is for like when we look at a business long term and we want those returning customers. Branding is very important, and you can see the amount of detail that goes into branding, the amount of things that you have to think about, because the difference between making a logo and using, say, a yellow color versus a pink color, that shouldn't be off the cuff. There should be psychology behind that. Green, relaxing and natural. Blue, confidence, security. You see that in a lot of the tech companies, a lot of like tech brands. Purple, creative, soothing. And of course, my personal favorite, I would use this color every day of the week in pretty much every brand. Okay. Black, it's just classic, it's elegant, it's modern. To me, it just screams like professionalism, and it just shouts serious to me. Okay. But you're probably going to resonate to a very different color palette here to what I will be drawn to. And the person that you speak to next week, for example, about branding, after you've watched this course and you want to talk about it with someone, they might have a very different color to you as well. So the way that we want to present our brand and the color psychology should be a representation of us as well, because it's a lot easier to brand something when you can also put a bit of your own emotion into it, right? Because I think naturally you'll just brand better. But again, you look at all of these brands, very different target audiences, very different customer profile. And so of course, the colors behind the brands are going to be very different. Now, step one, let's actually talk about your shops, and let's now look at finding the right tone, the right fonts, and the right colors for your personal shop brand. And guys, there's a resource here. I've got it in the community. It's in the classroom already. Brand board. Okay. I'll also add it to the resources section in this course, so you can just access it straight away. I'd recommend taking a look at it, guys. I really would. And I'll actually just load it up here for you. So this is essentially what it is. And you see, I'm flicking through the pages here, but you can open it up however you want on Canva. It's just a Canva document. You just go through the different pages. And what it is, guys, is it gives you a whole load of different, say, branding techniques and branding color palettes, along with, let me scroll, let me go in a bit better for you here. So you see here, you've got different fonts to choose from as well. So it actually lists out the fonts for you that match up and go best with the color palettes of the brand. So say, for example, you want to go down branding route, which is a more of a blue branding. So confidence, security, you kind of want to go down a bit more of that feeling. Okay. Look through the brand board. It'll start giving you ideas. You should find one that matches sort of the colors you're looking for a bit more. So, okay, see, there's a lot of blues in this one, potentially this one. We go back. Blues, this is quite elegant as well, potentially this one. And it just gives you the fonts that go best with that emotion of the color. And as you scroll through, guys, again, you'll notice color palettes that appeal more to you as a person and that you think are going to appeal more to your business. For example, this one here, so with all the purples, the pinks, and kind of, like the more, I'd say, feminine tones, that's a completely different color palette to this one here, which is got a lot more of the greens, beiges even. Okay, this is a completely different brand with a completely different emotion. Again, you look through, you've also got some much more general tones here, much more general color palettes, and go through them. And again, you got ones like this. So to me, straight away, this would scream more. This would probably be more up my street, to be fair. And so, yeah, a product that I've been featuring a lot through certainly the setup courses in the school community was, of course, chopsticks. And I've actually got them here as well to show you. So yeah, selling chopsticks. Of course, chopsticks, they're brown in color, and the sort of brand image which I wanted to give off is that more high class, more luxury feel. So this color palette really resonates with me personally, because you take brown chopsticks, a lot of the chopsticks that I would sell if I was really building out this into a business, they're all gonna have a lot of brown on it. And this color palette has also got the black as well. Yeah, it's just got the colors I'm looking for. So it gives the black, which I respond to a lot personally. And I think it gives that elegance, that sophistication. And then of course, it's also got the color tones, which are gonna consistently show up in my images, because the browns, of course, are in the chopsticks already. And you know, a few of these. So again, if you're looking for something that's a bit more of a fun, quirky brand, maybe something like this would look good. You see, they use very kind of like hand-drawn fonts. So you see you got the Montserrat and the Pequita font here. And you see there's different colors that some would say are not complementary, but sometimes non-complementary colors, they're all still very pastel, so there's still consistency throughout them. But these actually do work quite well in harmony for a brand which is a bit more quirky and a bit more fun. So again, yeah, you see this is probably a bit more of that like outdoor brand. Guys, just take a look. You'll get a lot of ideas, and at the very minimum, it'll help you to think about how color palettes work well with each other and how the fonts work well with those color palettes that you've chosen. And then of course, guys, another thing I do recommend you do when it comes to, you know, we're still very much in the research stage at the minute, by the way, guys, if I didn't mention that. But I really do also recommend you to look at other shops in your niche for inspiration. So the best way to do this is, of course, looking on Etsy. And so I have already had a bit of a look on Etsy. I don't want to bore you with it in this course too much, but two things that I think are really important to look at. First of all, find a listing image style that you like the most. For me, when it comes to branding, and if I was creating a new Etsy business or I wanted to just completely rebrand my current one to make it look a bit more professional, the first place I start is with the listing images. Because remember, guys, when people are finding your products on Etsy, they're finding your brand, like they're finding your shop through the images of your listings first. Remember, guys, people go on Etsy, they type in the product they want. In this instance, they type in chopsticks. They're not going to see my shop pop up. They're going to see one of my chopstick products pop up. So very, very important. And like I said, you notice this, and I don't know if this is just me that is drawn more to this, but I think this consistent listing approach looks so much more professional than something which, say, would have loads of different images from loads of different angles, different colors used in the backgrounds. I like the approach of, say, the Arrow Gift Co., the art shop I showed you, this chopstick shop as well. I think this approach, if you do it right, it's almost hard not to look professional. So I like how these images are taken, but of course, I prefer them in a darker tone because I already established myself. It's the darker tone. It's that sophisticated feel that I want in my products. So this is essentially a bit of my branding research here, guys. Of course, you'd go away yourself, go to Etsy, take a few screenshots, favorite a few items that you like, and start. Always remember the color palettes, but look at good ways of presenting products as well. And then take that and make it consistent on your shop. So yeah, this is the very first important step of the research. I like the close-ups here. That's what really stand out to me, and the dark background. So when I present my listings, I'm going to be using a combination of both of these. And that's the first thing. Start with the listings. So with whatever product it is you're selling, guys, if you're selling t-shirts, for example, go to Etsy, just type in t-shirts, and then first of all, find a listing image style which you like, which resonates best with you and your brand, and then look at the color palettes. I'm thinking immediately in my head, there's two different sorts of approaches here. If you were selling t-shirts, you could have something that's more dark, mysterious with, say, like a darker background, or you could have something which is a bit more light, playful, and you have a lighter background. You could have somebody with a massive beaming smile wearing a t-shirt if it's a bit more of like a playful or a bit more of like a boho, you know, like a nicer style t-shirt. Or you could have someone that's, say, like very serious, like arms crossed, like, you know, a bit, obviously I'm not a model, but a bit more of a like sophisticated, determined look on their face. If you're selling something which is a bit more of like a bit more of a serious t-shirt, like in that direction, for example. So it's all these little things, guys, that at the very least, after watching this course, I want you to start thinking about, and I want you to start considering. So all the small details matter. Now, after that, guys, what I want you to do is go to Canva, it's a program called Canva. And once you've got a rough idea of the colors you like, you can then start to create a banner and a logo in the style and in the tone of the palettes that you like. So like I shown you earlier, guys, from the brand board, I was speaking about it at the time, this one resonated most with me personally and my brand. So you see the color palettes here. It's got the dark, it's got the brown. I like the dark because, as we spoke about right at the start, the emotion that portrays, the sophistication, I want that in my brand, because I know a certain customer that doesn't care about sophistication is not going to spend, say, over $10 on a set of chopsticks, right? I know that, because otherwise they could just buy like $1 chopsticks or just use really cheap, I don't know, bamboo ones, right? So think about the product and the customer that's going to be buying the product. So yeah, like I said, I need to present these in a sophisticated way and in an expensive way to get the price tag I want for them, because otherwise somebody can just go and buy a super cheap pair and they still do the same job, right? So people are buying this for the sophistication and for that upper level. I don't know the best way of wording it. I think you can kind of get what I'm saying, but yeah, people are buying it because they want to elevate their at-home dining experience. They're basically not buying it just because it's like a set of chopsticks that they can use, right? They're buying it for what they look like and what they represent, which is why I chose the color black. And of course that feeds in perfectly with this color palette with the brown, because obviously the chopsticks, there's going to be a lot of brown used throughout my store. And like I said, guys, here, it's a bit blurry, but if you can read that, this is the Montserrat font. And of course, they give you two fonts in the brand boards, two that pair perfectly together. I always love the Montserrat font. I think in all capitals, it looks beautiful. So the font I've chosen, Montserrat, which is modern, minimal, and clean. The colors, black, brown, gray, and darks in combination. And if I just scroll up here, and then guys, of course, once you've kind of got that laid out and what you want, so the font and the colors, of course, then you actually go to Canva to create the banner and the logo. So I'm going to show you the ones I've done here. I don't want to bore you loads and actually show you me creating them. I have already actually created these banners and logos if you wanted to see me creating them in the earlier course of the shop setup and the shop appearance course, I believe. But you can see here, the font, Montserrat. The color palette, it matches up perfectly with this brand board, which I've selected. So the dark, the black, the Montserrat font. And again, I've just chosen a little image here of the logo. But again, it's in the white color. So the colors are always on brand. And I just added a little since 2025. My brand started in 2025, of course. Like I said, I'm just doing this for show, guys. But you can go see the Etsy shop if you want. It is live. There won't really be too much on it. But if you wanted to see it in person, feel free to go ahead and look. But of course, if you started your brand, say 10 years ago, a great one to have is this little since 20X, wherever the brand started. Obviously, the older, the better it would be. It's just a nice little one. I think when it comes to branding, this is just a nice, real clean approach. Quick little Canva tip, by the way, guys. Montserrat, all capitals. I'm going to show you this now. Big difference, and I mean big difference between the emotion that this portrays when you're using little letters. To me, this looks a lot more, say, playful and less professional. As soon as I go back and I change it to all the caps, to me, this looks a lot more sophisticated and a lot more serious, which is what I want to portray. So again, it's all these little details, guys. I've been doing this for like probably over 4 years now, building different brands, brand after brand. And it's all these little details, which as you get more experience, you think about automatically. So don't worry if you think there's too much to think about now. Over time, this is all just going to become so natural to you. Okay. Now, again, exact same approach with the banner. So this is my Etsy shop banner here. I've done the same, established 2025. The font, Montserrat. Again, let's go into another quick Canva tip as well, guys, just while we're on it. Spacing. You'll notice I've got a spacing of 98 here. This is not the standard spacing it gives you. If I go back to 0, to me, this just looks a little bit more cramped. And one thing about things being spaced out, whether it's your products or whether it's fonts, you see here that extra bit of spacing, to me, again, it just makes it look that bit more professional and a bit more sophisticated and a bit more upmarket. But again, it's these little things over time you just think of naturally. You look at it, you adjust the spacing a little bit and you say, okay, yeah, that represents what I'm thinking. That represents the brand a bit more than, say, the closer spacing. Again, you'll notice, guys, here, this is just some stock imagery. This is just stock imagery that I've got actually from Canva just by typing in chopsticks. But the color, I was very particular about the colors I used on these images. And let me just quickly show you something here, right? So I want to show you this on exactly how colors can completely change the brand image, okay? If I take this orange one here, look at that. So that's using an orange instead of a dark color in the image. That compared to that, in my opinion, that small change, that's chalk and cheese to me. That makes such a big difference in how the brand is presented. Again, that versus that. To me, this is clean. This is professional. This just looks out of place. It looks a bit more playful, but it doesn't go with the brand because you don't see a bright orange anywhere in this color palette. So for me, I like to take guidance from these color palettes and use it as a good guide, and your branding will just look so much more better, guys. So yeah, I hope that helps. And then again, all I did is just save them, put it on the Etsy store, and you see in harmony here. So this is what the banner looks like. This is the logo, and this is what they both look like together on the Etsy store. Bamboo and Beyond, established 2025. I think that looks very professional. And that is, after doing the research with you guys in this video, and obviously guys, I did do a bit of this beforehand because I wanted to get it presented to you in the best way. But yeah, this didn't take me too long to do at all. And this is the exact representation, the exact feel, the exact professional mood of the brand, which I wanted to portray for the target audience. That would be the first step for you guys. Banner, logo. Remember guys, banner is the biggest piece of real estate on your shop. Find your color palette, find the font, do portray that in the banner, and try your very best, guys, to stick within the color palettes of the brand board and of the branding direction that you want to take, and do not cross out of those boundaries unless you are very experienced at branding and you're confident in doing so. Now, moving on. You see here, when we talk about images as well. So like I presented to you guys earlier, and guys, these are not professional by any means, but I want to show you just a rough guideline of what I would do if I was doing this professionally. Obviously, I'm not going to pay for a photography team this time for this course. As much as I love you guys, photography in England is very expensive now. So yeah, you see, like I mentioned earlier, when I did the listing image research, I liked the way that these are presented up close and consistent in the middle of the frame. And I like the way that these, again, are up close, but they have a different colored background. So they have a much darker background. So what, of course, I did, put them both together. And again, I just took some very rough images for you guys. This is kind of the rough end result. I'd probably get, if I was going to do this properly and I asked a photographer to do this, I'd get them to darken this slate background even more. I'd want it even darker. So I'd want the slate even closer to, say, the banner and logo that I've got here in blackness. A lot more like this sort of color here, actually. So that's a lot of what I would go for in my listing images. And again, if you've got a much more fun, quirky, cheerful vibe, guys, in your brand, go for like something that's got a light, bright background, you know? Or if you want something that's more aimed for like kids, you could have like a yellow or like a pale blue or even, yeah, you know, just like a bright orange background. Or if you're doing something that's a lot more that people would buy for couples, or say something that people would buy for women in particular, you could go for a lot more like purples, pinks, you know, the feminine colors, because the color palette has to match the target audience and the tone of the brand. So yeah, there you go, guys. That's your banner, logo, image style. That should be clear to you now. And I just want to scroll down here. And guys, I just want to say as well, I want to make this crystal clear to you, okay? Please, 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 just be consistent in your branding and in your images, okay? Pick a style from the mood board, all right? Pick a color palette that represents your brand, you, and your target audience. Pick the fonts, okay? Pick the way of listing your images. So, i.e., if all of your images are listed with that, say, close-up approach, it would be suddenly with a dark background, right? It would be then look so out of place if you suddenly do a really far away approach with a bright white background. Think of making everything look as in sync and as cohesive as possible. And if you're using mock-ups, guys, don't use too many different styles. I want to show you here just a shop and the listings that I used in a previous clothing shop I made. Again, this was a new shop and this got to 100 sales very quickly within the first, I believe it was 70 days, 100 sales in clothing, which is, if any of you selling clothing, it's very competitive. And I actually featured this in a video on my channel already. But yeah, this was the way that I laid everything out with the mock-ups. And you can see I just went for that very consistent listing approach. Literally all of my listings were like this, guys. I promise you guys, it just makes everything look so much more professional, especially if you're a new shop. You have to look as professional as you possibly can. The more a customer trusts you and your brand, the more likely they are to think that you're serious, and they're going to get a good quality product and they're going to want to buy to you. Another thing I'd say, guys, don't sell loads of different product types. Try your best to stick to complementary products at the start if you do want to introduce more product types to your store. For example, if you're selling clothing, you want t-shirts, then you could move on to jumpers, then you can move on to hoodies. Potentially, you could even move on to hats, right? What I wouldn't recommend is selling t-shirts, jumpers, hoodies, and then starting to add a load of, I don't know, wall art or ornaments, right? It wouldn't really go, especially at the start. You know, maybe when you've got thousands of listings and you're very well established, you can then start to integrate things that are a bit more unique, but keep it as simple as possible at the start. For example, items that can be given as gifts, right? Mugs, cards, other various gift items. If the theme of the store is products that can be given as gifts, which I think is very good on Etsy, by the way, then stick to small items that are low cost, right? Because again, think of the target audience. They're going to want to buy things cheap, cheerful as a gift. So think about your pricing strategy as well. And don't suddenly then go selling, say, a $500 framed piece of wall art, because it's not going to go with the store. It's not going to go with the brand. And it's certainly not going to go with the same target audience that's buying a mug as a gift to give to their colleague. Whereas a card, which says, thanks for being the best colleague in the world, would. Again, just get into that mindset, right? Chopsticks, my biggest brand on Etsy was, of course, Sona Sopa selling the Japanese tableware. Chopsticks, ramen bowls, branch out to sushi plates, eventually branch out to Japanese whiskey glasses. You know, it's the same target audience that's buying all of these products. The target audience of somebody that wants to elevate their at-home dining experience and loves Asian cuisine. Chopsticks, the same target audience more than likely has a ramen bowl in their house, or they would have a need for a ramen bowl. So really nail down the target audience. And to help you do that, guys, feel free to pause the video here and copy and paste this out. I want you to complete this sentence for your brand and for your Etsy business, right? So my Etsy shop name, offers, talk about the type of products that you sell, designed for, talk about the target audience, who are looking for, then why the customer is buying the product. I understand that the customer, or I understand that they value then the need. So this is what the product need that your product needs to fulfill. And my goal is to provide them with then the emotional experience of the product. And I'm going to go through my example after this, guys, don't worry. Then talk about different emotions, say joy, relaxation, confidence, for example. And then by shopping with us, so by shopping with our brand, they will, and then the benefit of them shopping with you versus competitors that they will get. For example, with this chopstick brand I'm showing you, my Etsy shop, Bamboo and Beyond, offers chopsticks designed for men and women who like Asian cuisine, who are looking for chopsticks to give as a gift or for their own kitchen at home. And I could have put here to elevate their dining experience as well. Now, I understand that they value, so that my customer values quality and presentation, because why else would they be spending upwards of $10 on a set of chopsticks when they can buy something so much cheaper for like $2? And my goal is to provide them with the highest quality chopsticks on the market so that they can fully level up their at-home dining experience. That, guys, if you nail that down at the start, you will have a crystal clear vision of your brand, your target audience, and the way that you market and present your products and your brand to that target audience. Guys, these are the rules I want you to follow, and you can apply them to everything that you do with your brand through social media, your Etsy shop, the About Us section in your Etsy shop, and even the way that you talk to customers in your product descriptions and in the messaging that you give those customers.